And here we go again. I'll tell you what, we don't have the clapper. We have John Nigerian looking a little bit different than usual. I don't know what the hell's going on there. We actually have the wonderful Glenn Fife, who does, the guy can do it all, man. I mean, he really does. And Glenn's got this cool background. I mean, he's a young guy who's already had a multiple of jobs that are great jobs. And he just keeps moving up the chain. And well, he's at the top chain now because he's at Market Rebellion. But he was with the Houston Texans, for the people who don't know that. He's been on here before and with Marriott and been with us for a while. And he's done a lot of different things, does a great job with the events that we do and everything. So I'm happy to have you here, man. I mean, and we got John out in L.A. He kind of left us in the high and dry. And all of a sudden, he's like, hey. And I go, look, forget it. We don't need you. We got Glenn.
Yeah. Exactly. I'm over here riding the highs of my Astros winning 3 in a row, sweeping the Boston Red Sox. So I had to represent them a little bit today.
I like it.
Yeah, love it. So nice to fill in.
Yep. And I'm digging the hat. I really am, because Glenn asked ahead of time. He goes, is it all right? I go, well, I don't know how it couldn't be all right, because like he said, he's a Stros guy. He knows it through and through. And they're doing great. But has anyone ever seen my brother without a hat? Because I don't remember the last time.
There's nothing to show, really, but you got a little bit nicer, shinier head.
I got some shine, man. I've never been happy about it, but I got to embrace what I am. I'm a guy who's got no hair, so what the hell? I mean, it's all good. All right, well, people are here for what we are, which is the Rebels Edge, and we've got some cool stuff today. So why don't we kick it off with the macro minute, Glenn? We're going to hit it. John and I have a lot of different choices every single day. I'm going to just say we talk about it a lot. We continue to talk about it because I think it's influencing the market as much as anything in the macro side of things. That's the 2-year and the 10-year. And it continued to drop down. They both spiked. We had that big spike over 5 for the 2-year. That was a big deal. A little bit of pressure on the markets, although the markets still performed decent. But we've been watching it go down, down, down. The 2-year was much higher. Now it's getting a lot closer to being right at 4. And, you look over, the 10-year. Then you look at the 2-year underneath 5. I think that's why we are seeing markets kind of shifting around the last couple of days.
Yeah, agreed. And I mean, it's been on the heels of that 10-year. That 10-year has been falling. But I will say that if you look at a chart, it's trading within a channel right now. And there's some points here where you could call for a bounce on the 10-year. So it's a slight pullback that it seemed, but could this be a little short-term low where we see a nice pop back towards the highs of that 10-year? That's something that I'm watching for as equities start to stall out here today.
Yep. Maybe a little bit of a head fake. Maybe they're going to catch us all, everybody leaning on one side of the boat, something like that. All right. Now we're going to move on to Fantastic Futures.
Fantastic Futures.
We always love it. Jared does a great job. I didn't even mention Jared earlier, but Jared's here as always is here, and he does an awesome job of mixing in everything and getting everything set up for us. So thank you, Jared. All right, so here's what we've got for Fantastic Futures. Another area that we hit a lot, but I think for all the right reasons. Crude oil is the one I'm going with right now. When you look at it, Glenn, just 3-4 days ago, trading days ago, we were trading in the 70s, 78, 79 on crude oil. Well, we hit dang near 83 today. We've pulled back off of that a little bit, still above 82. And I think it's important because we already know what the backdrop has given us so far. We had the 2 million barrels by the start of July that OPEC cut. You've got the Russian cuts this week of 300,000. There's a lot going on here, and we're seeing this movement that, for the people who don't know, this is unusual to see the kind of movement and the velocity of the movement that we are seeing right now in this commodity. So I think crude oil is what I'm looking at for the futures. What about you, Glenn?
Yeah, some volatility there, but where's the crop report, Pete? Because orange juice just hit another high today, and it's pulling back now a little bit off the high from this morning. But I mean, that massive run just continues since 2021, since the start there, and it just keeps going. So I'm looking at that. I mean, it doesn't play as big of a role as obviously as crude oil does or anything, but that's a chart. That's a hell of a chart right there when you see that run that it's made. And it's obviously a lot of other grocery store items as well has hit. And you see the storms that have hit Florida. That's only going to further fuel this orange juice move that we've been seeing. So that's one that I've been just watching for fun there.
And you say orange juice, I think about squeezed, which is what I'm getting with my house down in Florida. I'm not too happy about it, Glenn. It's talk about a nightmare. Cheaper.
I imagine.
But it's eggs. It's still eggs. You got orange juice. We talked about sugar this week as well. There's a lot of different areas within that market. So that's a great call by you on orange juice. All right. We're now going to jump into our 4 stocks that we're going to hit. We're going to start off with Salesforce. Now, love the company. It's been very interesting. They've had their ups and their downs, but they are not that far off of the 52-week high. As a matter of fact, the stock today got all the way up to 228. 238 was the 52-week high. 126 was the 52-week low. So it's very much up there, nearly kissing those highs, although it's given back a little bit as we've gotten through the trading session. But why was it moving the way it was? Well, they had a monstrous beat on their earnings. And then you look at Goldman Sachs, who all of a sudden decided, hey, we like this even more than we thought. They went from 325 to 340 on their price target. Yes, 340, not 240, 340. So these guys are really shooting for the stars right now. They got about a 28 PE, and they got free cash flow of $11 billion. So they've got a great balance sheet. They've got all this free cash flow. I think this thing is going in the right direction, and I think it might have more legs. I'm not sure about 340, though. What about you, Glenn?
Yeah, what happened 6 months ago when everyone was talking crap about Salesforce here, right? I say don't bet against Benioff. They're looking at 30% growth going into 2024. I mean, that's incredible right there. And I think that's why you're seeing this rebound here. Goldman Sachs has to put that 30% somewhere when they're looking out forward. So I love it. I mean, I think that the cut back in spending to improve their margins has been tremendous. It's what everybody wanted. They still have that AI focus, which is the hot term right now. So again, just don't bet against Benioff.
Right. I agree with you. I know the guy. He's a great guy. He's Mr. Ohana and everything else. I love him with his Hawaii tie, everything he's got connected to that. But he's an amazing businessman. All right, we're going to jump now to Five Below, one of those big discounters. What has been the theme this whole earnings season about these discounters? The Dollar Generals, the Dollar Trees, you go through all those types of names out there. The problem has been theft, theft, and theft. And it's not just those guys. How about Walmart? How about Target? How about a lot of these different companies that are literally talking about how much theft there is out there? They call it shrink, but we're going to call it what it is. And so this is one of the biggest issues. That stock was getting hammered earlier today, Glenn. I mean, they were just giving it the business to the downside for all the right reasons, I think. And also, you can't guide disappointing guidance. You have that, you're going to get hit. They had that, they're getting hit, and they've got the theft. You got margins right now that are getting absolutely squeezed in this company.
Yeah, I think the theft is a real issue. I mean, we were just at a CVS here in Chicago the other day. Guy walks in, says, I'm taking this, and just walks out. I mean, it's absolutely insane, but I think you got to look further out than that, right? We're still talking about a recession here, which could cut back in spending on the consumer, right? Which Five Below fits that mark, right? Along with Dollar General and Dollar Tree, right? And then at the same time, they're also beating their competitors when it comes to their sales growth with a 13.5% sales growth outlook. I mean, that right there is why I think they can survive this whole theft, thing going on right now with all the retailers. If you look a little bit further out, it doesn't look all that bad, especially if the next couple quarters they can improve those that theft issue and even better their forward guidance. So yeah, I'm still looking further out to Five Below for a possible opportunity there.
I think a lot of these guys got to figure out how they're going to crack down on this, because the obvious is they're allowing people to do it. And, everybody's got their political opinions and blah, blah, blah. Who cares? But these are real numbers we're talking about. I mean, I think the Walmart number, Glenn, might have been $3 billion, and the Target number was like $700 million. So we're talking some big numbers in some of these names. It's just ridiculous. I'll tell you where we're not talking big numbers, but we're talking interesting numbers. Victoria's Secret. This one, pretty interesting. They missed on the top. They missed on the bottom. That's not so great. They projected a loss that's significantly different than what was expected. That's not so great. But they did one thing that a lot of people, I think, all of a sudden this stock made a turn when everybody realized it. But they're adding to their board a former CFO who Mr. Little, who is a turnaround specialist, and they're going to have to turn this thing around because the stock got absolutely hammered. It hit 52-week low, very close to 52-week lows. Didn't actually hit them, very within pennies. And then all of a sudden, this thing turned and burned and started moving back to the upside. So a nice intraday move out of this name, and I think it's a pretty impressive one. Maybe there's something to this. This guy, I think a lot of people feel like, Glenn, that he's the guy who can kind of fix things. And if the fixer's in there, kind of reminds me of Pulp Fiction or something like that. I mean, you need a fixer, and this might be the fixer they're looking for.
Yeah, I think you're going to get your hopes up, Pete, because I don't see a comeback story in this name whatsoever, unless they can go back to the nice days of, featuring their beautiful models on TV and whatnot. I think they went too far to the extreme to one side, and we know what side that was. And I think that they that comeback story just doesn't seem to be there. Every time I walk past the store, I mean, you talk about boots on the ground. I mean, there's nobody there. I look at a story kind of similar to Abercrombie and Fitch, right, where they did have that huge downturn in their business. They were able to come back. We've seen them improve recently. I just don't see that same story playing out with Victoria's Secret. I think they need a big improvement on their products. I know that's one thing that we've seen is that a lot of people are looking towards more sustainable, lingerie, things like that, apparel, more athleisure type looking apparel as well. And you just don't see them really diving or really improving any of these products. It's kind of the same old thing that they've been doing. Yeah. Can he do that? Sure. Maybe he can come around and turn it around. I'm just not betting on it. I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah, and I'm not saying it's going to happen either, but somebody thinks it's going to happen because that turn, just that headline, I think, really had a lot of folks saying, you know what, this guy can fix this thing. And maybe if he listens to Glenn Fife, he will. So we'll see how well that goes. All right, UBS is next. Now, you want to talk about somebody, we talk about this all the time, crushing it. This is even more. I don't even know what the best word would be to describe this, but they posted a $29 billion profit in the quarter. I mean, outrageous, right? But I think part of that, Glenn, is the fact that they were able to get together with Credit Suisse. They were able to turn into the second largest lender in Europe. And with that, a lot of people, they're counting out these financials. Well, they might have been a little bit early there because when you look through these numbers that they were able to produce, things are going pretty damn well for UBS right now. And I'll tell you, it's been absolutely impressive to watch what they were able to put up there and how impressive it is, I think, when you look at $10 billion in cost reductions as well. They are taking it from that side, but they're also showing you what they can do profit-wise. I think this is an amazing run, something we probably should have thought about as those regionals let us down in March. This is leading us up now. And I don't think it's over for a lot of these financials. I think a lot of these names out there actually have a lot more upside still to come. And we'll find out as we get through earnings in the next earnings cycle.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. I mean, it's easy to hit a home run when you just get an underhand pitch, right? And they got that when it came to Credit Suisse, $3.9 billion acquisition. Now you're turning around and making $29 billion off of it. I mean, that's incredible. They could have easily squandered the opportunity, though, right? Mm-hmm. And they didn't, right? And so they've successfully managed this acquisition. I think you're right that there's more potential there, especially as they continue to turn around that business. So It's impressive. I mean, at UBS, it's there's a reason why it's higher. I think it's going to go higher. And you're right. This could trickle into some other names here in the financial industry or sector over the months to go. So
yeah, we'll be watching on that unusual option activity to see if we start seeing anything in the financials starting to hit a little bit more.
Yeah,
we've seen it
that rotation.
And we've seen it in other areas, and we're starting to see it. And I'm not going to say where they are. Well, I'll give you one of them, gold. Anyway, all right. Next, we're going to hit the sports. So NCAA football. Now we had 0 week last week. But for the people like me who are freaks for college football, 0 week was great because you got a chance to see what Notre Dame really looks like. I know it's against a Navy team, but they really looked dominant. And Sam Hartman, the quarterback who transferred there from Wake Forest, looked like he was ready to be in that Heisman race the way he looked in that game. We'll see. Obviously, it's early. So, Glenn, here's what I got for you. Tonight, I will be there. I'll be on the sideline, Minnesota, Nebraska. Can't wait for it. 7 o'clock kickoff. I believe it's on Fox. it should be great. We'll see what Matt Rule's been able to do with those Huskers who've been struggling for years now. But can he be the guy who fixes, speaking of fixers, that can fix this whole thing? They are an amazing school that's done nothing but great things in football, even when they've been in a bit of a bind the last few years. This is they sell out every game. They do all of that. But we've got that game. Then on Saturday, I've got North Carolina going up against South Carolina. That should be a great game because we get a chance to see in that game Drake May, the quarterback last year, who absolutely stunned everybody how good he was, freshman quarterback, absolutely outrageous. How about LSU, Florida State? And I know Glenn's looking at that one too, so I'll let him take that. But they got two quarterbacks there. Again, two more quarterbacks who could be in that Heisman race as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, let's talk about Rule because he's a master of turning some things around. He couldn't do it at Carolina, but when it comes to college, he's done it with Temple and he's done it with Baylor, and that's one where I agree with you. I think he can improve that Nebraska team. I think it's going to be a tremendous turnaround. He's great at improving the guys that he has around him and really developing these kids into pros and men, right? So I think that's he's already has the track record from those two schools. I'm really looking forward to seeing what he can do over there at Nebraska. But for me, yes, LSU and that Florida State team, that's a huge game on week 1. I mean, if LSU loses that, I mean, yeah, you can get in with a 1-loss record, but I mean, to lose to Florida State on week 1 like that, you gotta, it's just not something that you can do. And I'm a big LSU fan. One thing that I will point out is when these two teams face, the visitor typically has won in the past. So it plays well for LSU. But the one that I'm really looking at right now today, though, is that Utah-Florida game, because this has huge implications for Utah. I think Utah has an opportunity here to really make a run and maybe even crack into the playoffs on the heels of some success from last year. I think that they could do it this year, but it all starts with Florida. And if they lose that game, they're moving back so far that I don't think they'll be able to make that run later on in the season. So this is a huge game right here for Utah, only favored by 5. So obviously the odds makers are seeing that as a close game. That's one that I'm really watching. Then I'm watching West Virginia, Penn State, because I mean, look, if there's anyone in college football on the hot seat, it's Neil Brown. Neil Brown has had 3 horrible seasons. And I mean, I'm a Big 12 guy. I like LSU, but I love the Big 12 coming from Texas. And that's one that I think if he can't turn it around this season, he's out. And West Virginia, they're just a lot better than that. They need a turnaround season. It's got to start with Penn State. Obviously, they're not going to win that game most likely. Penn State favored by 20, but to make an impression and show that, hey, you guys have improved from last year. And then once you get into these easier games, winning those could help save his job. So that's one that I'm really looking forward to.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. And I'll tell you, you're right. I mean, Penn State is, again, great. And so it's not going to be easy. And it's more of a matter of how close can they be? How good do they look against a real top-end team? And, it's going to be difficult. We all know that. The one thing about Utah, I will tell you, I think I saw on the wire earlier today that the quarterback is out for the game for Utah, which is
no kidding.
Yeah.
Wow. I didn't know that.
I'm like 90% on that. Don't lock that in on anybody, but I thought I saw that on ESPN earlier today when I was watching some shows. So just know that that's a possibility, and that might be why, because they're rated, and yet Florida's not, because they lost so many people, including the quarterback, but the receivers, all these different guys. But, so that does change the game just a little bit if that Utah quarterback is not in there, because he was magic last year. He was phenomenal. Indeed. He was fun. He threw the tight ends. He did everything you're supposed to do as a good quarterback, and this is his year. But I think he's still having some issues with one of his legs. Anyway, the next one we're going to hit is Nebraska volleyball. Now you're saying to yourself, what the hell does Pete and Glenn know about volleyball? My daughter used to play. My daughter was very good. When she went to Nebraska, she did not play volleyball anymore, but she did run track. So there's some great athletes all over different sports and everything else. But last night at Nebraska's football stadium, There's the pictures of it coming at you in a second. 92,000 people were there, Glenn. 92,000.
Look at that. That looks like a Taylor Swift concert right there. Jesus.
These guys at Nebraska, these ladies, I should say, 306 consecutive sellouts for volleyball. So it didn't hurt either that they're going up against Nebraska Omaha. So you got Nebraska Omaha going against Lincoln. We call them Nebraska, but I'll tell you, absolutely amazing. They are so good, so fun to watch. I've actually been to some of those games, Glenn, and I'll tell you what, if you want a place that has beautiful facilities, take a look at the University of Nebraska sometime. Football stadium, second to none. Basketball stadium, right up there with the very best. Volleyball stadium, because they're all individual. I mean, they've got everything. And what they did to those locker rooms there at Nebraska this past year under Coach Rule is unreal. So these girls got to come out just like the football players. They got the smoke. They got it all, man. I mean, it was an unbelievable evening in Lincoln, Nebraska. And how cool is it that 92,000 people showed up? It's a world record for a women's event. It's a world record. So that's pretty cool.
That's absolutely impressive. And I think they should do it more often. I mean, get them out there. You know, you don't ever talk about these things because they're just confined to the small arena that they're in and whatnot. But obviously, Nebraska fans, I mean, they are tremendous. To show up like that is incredible. But I could argue that if you threw Baylor, you know, women's basketball onto their football stadium, or you threw even LSU with Mulkey over there and their basketball team, you know, play a little outdoor game or whatnot, they could get that kind of turnout as well. So I think they should do this more often, especially if it's like a preseason type of thing. But just, I mean, hats off to the fans there and the organizers too, to put on something like that. And I don't know how unexpected. I'm sure it had to have been unexpected to receive 92,000 fans like that. But to be able to pull that off and make it a show for them and really give them that full treatment of coming out, like you said, coming out of it. There's nothing like that, as you know, Pete, and I know. I mean, coming out of that tunnel has a whole different feeling, and there's nobody that does a production like that outside of the big football stadiums, right? So really awesome story to see, and I hope it becomes a trend more with these schools.
Yeah, the adrenaline rush that you get, man, I mean, it's unbelievable. I was lucky enough to have that in college and NFL and all that stuff, and it was so much fun, and you were part of the NFL, so you know as well. I mean, it just gets you pumped. I mean, people just don't realize how much you get elevated by a lot of that kind of thing. And I think it's why we've seen the NHL going into all these football stadiums, going to the University of Michigan, and, you know, whether it's at the TCF Field out here in Minnesota, whatever it is, baseball, football stadiums, that's become a big deal these days for the NHL because they can put a heck of a lot of people in those stadiums, much more than the standard NHL, you know, stadium where it's like 15, 17, maybe 20,000 people. Suddenly you've got 60, 70,000 people at a hockey game. That's a big deal as well. But this 92,000, man, it just shows you these Nebraska fans are awesome. And to your point, I'd love to see the Texas schools try to do this. I think it'd be great. Why wouldn't you at least give it a shot? I mean, it's a great thing for the girls. It's a great thing for the school. I mean, it would be awesome. And that would be a lot of fun. I think you're exactly on that one, Glenn. All right. Well, Glenn, appreciate you filling in. It's always great. And we have no idea what John's up to. We only know that last night, because he told us, he was going to be in Malibu. So what happens in Malibu, of course, always stays in Malibu. But, you know, I'm sure they had fun. They might have had a cocktail or two. And they might have had a little bit of a good time. But I think they were going to be racing in cars. So not too many cocktails, hopefully, last night. And we'll see. A little Adam Carolla time is what they were doing. Glenn, thanks again. And we'll see everybody next Monday. We're going to be here again, right again, like we are every week. Let's get after it.